Do you believe, like a lot of people believe, that Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, doesn't like Caitlin Clark?
The situation in Indiana has officially reached a breaking point, and word is that Caitlin Clark has had enough. After watching her team get embarrassed in blowout after blowout, sources are saying Clark is done staying quiet about Stephanie White's coaching failures. The question isn't whether White has failed anymore, it's how much longer the front office will ignore what everyone else can see.
At all, you got fans mad that other fans are being critical of the coach. I don't know how you watch this team and not be extremely critical of the coaching. You cannot lose that game last night at home.
She's a DEI hire. She worked for ESPN for years, correct, right? And see, I'm under the belief that Caitlin Clark is being sabotaged from the very top because what she represents is good.
But here's what's even worse. When Clark got injured earlier this season, White called it a blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. That tells you everything you need to know about how this coach views her franchise player. What coach in their right mind calls losing their best player a blessing? That's not coaching, that's sabotage dressed up as strategy.
I think I said it early when C was out the very first time, while we don't like it, sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise because everybody else finds themselves. I felt like our group did some uncharacteristic things with the ball in our hands, and it led to easy buckets.
Kind of just described all this, but the turnovers, only 15 assists. What kind of led to the disorganization that you saw on the offensive end tonight?
Well, all of our point guards are injured. I think that's the first thing. And again, it's one of those things. Dallas turned up the pressure. Defensively, they made it a little bit more difficult for us to bring down the ball and initiate offense, and became a little bit more disruptive. And we're working Odyssey into what we do, but
we all see what happened against Phoenix. That's not just a loss, that's coaching malpractice on full display. Without Clark on the floor, the Fever didn't just lose, they looked completely exposed, like a team with no identity, no system, and no leadership. And where was Stephanie White during?
Like I said, I think the Indiana Fever did a horrible job from the top down. Amber Cox, Kelly Krauskopf have done a terrible job putting the roster together along with Stephanie White. I didn't even like the Stephanie White hire to begin with. I didn't feel that she's a part of the old guard, and the style that Caitlin Clark plays does not fit with what Stephanie White is naturally comfortable with. They say you can teach a fighter to fight a certain way, and they're going to do that until they start getting hit upside the head.
The Dallas Wings game was the final straw. You cannot, and I mean cannot, allow a team with 9 wins to go on a 19-0 run in your own building. That's unacceptable for any coach at any level. But what does White focus on afterward? The officiating, the turnovers, everything except the fact that she had 0 answers when her team was getting punked at home. And let's be real about these rotations. White pulls Lexi Hull, one of the few players who actually supports Clark, and replaces her with players who don't fit the system.
When these teams face the Indiana Fever while Caitlin Clark is playing, it's the Super Bowl. You're getting everybody's best shot. Everybody wants to make a name for themselves beyond their play, meaning I'll make a name for myself by knocking her to the floor or elbowing her eyeball out the socket. Whatever I got to do, that is what they are willing to do when Caitlin Clark is on the team. We have not received, I don't believe, that same effort from these players while she's not there, and we have benefited from playing a lot of terrible teams, as I stated last show. But beyond this game, we were terrible in the Los Angeles Sparks game. You made a late run. Nobody played basketball until you were down 22 at 6.
She benches hot shooters because we don't ride the hot hand. That's not a coaching philosophy. That's ego masquerading as strategy. When you've got someone hitting threes like they're shooting in an empty gym, you feed them the ball. Basketball 101. But White would rather stick to her outdated playbook than actually win games. The most insulting part? This roster is stacked. Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham. This isn't a rebuilding project. This is a playoff-ready team being steered straight into mediocrity by someone who treats game management like an optional skill. Clark came from Iowa, where standards mattered, every game mattered, every possession mattered. You didn't get to hide behind excuses or blame the refs when things went wrong. You adjusted, you fought, and you found a way to win. That's not happening in Indiana, and for a player like Clark, that's unacceptable.
Me and Steph have always talk about when we go and watch film, and even that New York game where I played really, really well. I started the fourth quarter off with 3 turnovers in a row or 2 turnovers in a row, and Steph yanked me, and she was like this is a learning moment. Do we need that in this moment? No. And then she subbed me back in. There was a play where I kind of got a steal, and we're going in transition, and Kelsey Mitchell just takes off down the middle of the floor, and so there's 2 people kind of by her, and I literally go to grab the ball, and then I just dribble out, and I literally just start smiling so big, and I look at Steph, and I told her after the game,
that better be on film.
Yeah, I'm you don't understand how hard it was for me to not throw that. And she's like, oh, I know, trust me. Everybody was like, we saw you about to throw that. But I think it's just kind of a learning process.
Here's what the commentators are saying behind the scenes. They are openly questioning whether White even likes Caitlin Clark. They're pointing to specific moments, the substitution patterns, the roster decisions, the way Clark gets yanked after a couple of turnovers while other players get endless rope to make mistakes. It's starting to look less like coaching and more like intentional sabotage.
Caitlin Clark came about. We only here because of Caitlin Clark. It's the only reason why we talking about WNBA. You're not going to walk into no bar, no Buffalo Wild Wings, and see them having a WNBA game on. You're not going to walk in no sports bar in the casino, no.
Take that moment where Clark had a steal in transition, saw Kelsey Mitchell running the floor, and chose not to make the risky pass because White had just benched her for turnovers. Clark literally smiled and told White how hard it was not to throw that pass. That should terrify every Fever fan. We're watching one of the most creative passers in basketball history get coached out of what makes her special. And then there's the Phoenix Mercury debacle. The Fever had won 5 straight games, looking like they might have figured something out. Then Phoenix showed up and exposed everything wrong with White's system. No adjustments, no timeouts to stop momentum, just watching the house burn down while acting surprised that it's on fire. White's press conferences have become a broken record. Uncharacteristic turnovers. Defensive effort. We got away from our game plan. But here's the thing. If the same problems keep happening, they're not uncharacteristic anymore. They're habits. Habits formed under her watch. Meanwhile, look at what real coaches do in this league. Sandy Brondello in New York adjusts lineups mid-quarter and rides hot hands. Cheryl Reeve in Minnesota manages minutes smartly and prepares for every late game scenario. That's the level Clark deserves, not someone who treats clock management like a suggestion. The fan base is completely split, and that's exactly what you'd expect when leadership fails. You've got defenders treating any criticism of White like blasphemy, while the rest of us are watching the same games wondering how this coach still has a job. How do you sell yourself as a defensive mastermind when you give up 27 points off turnovers and let bottom feeder teams run you out of your own gym? Clark's reported frustration isn't just about wins and losses, it's about her career. She's already one of the most valuable players in the league, and she's watching the people in charge waste it. Every season squandered under incompetent coaching is a year she doesn't get back. She knows this team could be a legitimate contender with the right leadership. Instead, they're stuck in the worst place you can be in professional sports. Too talented to tank, too poorly coached to win big. The most damaging evidence? Remove the 4 wins against Chicago, and this team is sitting below .500 with this roster. That's not a talent problem, that's a coaching problem. White has turned a playoff-ready team into a squad that loses to expansion teams, gets swept by the LA Sparks, and suffers embarrassing blowouts against teams they should dominate. What's really telling is how opponents approach games differently when Clark isn't on the floor. When she's playing, teams bring their A game because they know she can single-handedly change the outcome. Without her, that intensity disappears. Phoenix didn't coast against the Clarkless Fever. They destroyed them with the same effort they'd bring against a championship contender. That's how bad things have gotten under White's leadership. The substitution patterns tell the whole story. White loves overcomplicating lineups, putting players on the floor together who have zero chemistry, especially in crucial moments. That's not experimenting, that's gambling with wins. She acts like every game is a preseason scrimmage instead of part of a playoff push. And let's talk about accountability. White's favorite crutch is blaming officiating. Sure, calls have been rough, but every team deals with bad refs. Good coaches prepare their teams to overcome it. White's post-game habit of harping on foul calls sends a toxic message. It's not our fault, it's theirs. That's poison for a locker room trying to build winning habits. Clark didn't break scoring records and drag college teams to Final Fours by accepting excuses. She got there by demanding excellence and finding solutions. That's exactly what she's doing now, allegedly pushing for the coaching change. Everyone except the front office can see is necessary. The evidence is overwhelming. Baffling rotations, mistimed or unused timeouts in critical moments, zero clock management, the same tired talking points after every collapse. This isn't coaching, it's a masterclass in how to waste generational talent. Here's the bottom line. Stephanie White might be a nice person with relationships in the league, but nice doesn't win championships, and relationships don't make up for an inability to close out fourth quarters. The Fever have a decision to make. They can stick with the status quo and waste Clark's prime, or they can bring in leadership that can turn this talent into a title contender. Because right now, the only thing the Fever are leading the league in is frustration. And if these reports about Clark's demands are accurate, that frustration isn't going to stay behind closed doors much longer. She's invested in this franchise's success, and she's not going to sit quietly while poor leadership throws away another season. The question isn't whether Stephanie White has failed anymore. The tape, the stats, and the scoreboard have already answered that. The question is whether the Fever's front office has the courage to act before they lose their franchise player to frustration and their fan base to embarrassment. Caitlin Clark has reportedly made it clear, enough is enough. Will the front office finally listen, or will they keep protecting a coach who can't deliver when it matters most? Drop your take in the comments, because this decision could determine the entire future of Indiana basketball.